Welcome to the show. Geek Insider presents Into the Geekverse, the place to get an inside look at movies, comics, games, tech, and everything exciting going on in the Geekverse. Join Matthew Harris and David King as they take a deeper look at the good, the bad, and the downright terrible things our Geekverse has to offer. With live chat, geek news, special guests, and lots more. So sit back, relax, and join us for a peek into the Geekverse.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Into the Geekverse. I am Matthew Harris, and my co-host is over there,
David King.
And as you can see, I'm in the dark here. I'm having some technical difficulties right as we were supposed to come on live. My power went out, and it's an outage in the entire area, and my internet as well is now down. We got a notification about that. And apparently, Howard Warshaw lives in my neighborhood because he's having some technical difficulties, and he is not able to make it in yet. So hopefully if he's not able to make it in tonight, we'll be able to get him again some other time. But we're going to pivot and discuss something that David and I always love and have enough to talk about to fill a million shows. The one, the only Batman, because Batman was yesterday. Folks, I see a lot of you tuning in to the live show. I apologize that Howard's not here. Like I said, wait, hang on, David, go ahead. I'm getting a call.
Guys, I will go ahead and talk to y'all for a little bit. He may be hearing from Howard. If you're just now tuning in, we do appreciate everybody joining us live. Matthew is in the dark because of a power outage, technical difficulties. Howard has not yet joined us, presumably also because of technical difficulties. He may be joining us later. What we are going to go ahead and pivot to is Batman, as Matthew said. Yesterday was Batman Day, as well as a lot of companies are now putting out its Batman Week. So one of the really cool things about that is go to your favorite shops. One of mine is like Iron Studios. They're offering percentages off on sale of everything Batman. As you can see, we've got several different things, like all Batman related, and both Matthew's and mine. So we have plenty to talk about. I watched The Son of Batman literally right before the show, watched Batman versus Robin. Matthew the other day told me that he watched one of the original Christian Bale Batmans, The Dark Knight Rises. So we have a lot to talk about, guys. Please, you definitely should still stay tuned because we have not gotten a chance to go in depth into Batman. And I know we're both super excited to talk to y'all about that. Like he did say, if Howard does join us, we'd be more than happy to pivot back over and be able to get all the information we can to share with you. Howard, his book that he wrote, Matthew even read that. So we've got plenty of stuff to occupy all this time. With that being said, the Batman that I watched was part of this really big series that DC put out in their animated movies that led to the Apocalypse, the Dark War and everything. It's a really good series. They're on HBO Max. Y'all should check them out if y'all don't. But when you start with, welcome back, Matthew.
Unfortunately, that I couldn't get in touch with whoever that was. It was one of Howard's representatives. Folks, I'm getting some comments that I'm hard to hear, and it's because I'm on a hotspot connection. So I'm going to let David do most of the talking. I'll jump in when I got something to relevant to say. But again, I just want to say for those of you tuning in for Howard Warshaw, there's some technical difficulties going around on all points of view except for freaking David over there. And so we're pivoting, and we're hopeful that Howard will make it in. So stay tuned. And if not, then we will see about getting him rescheduled. But with that, I'm going to mute David, and you keep on talking.
All righty, guys. So with no longer delays, we'll go ahead and we'll dig into that. So we watched The Son of Batman. Now, for people who don't know, spoilers alert, by the way, but The Son of Batman is one of the later Robins known as Damian Wayne. This movie is one of the animated ones, and it starts off as Damian Wayne. He is training and being under attack with Ra's al Ghul and his daughter Talia al Ghul, which is a.k.a. Damian Wayne's mother. Because Bruce Wayne and Batman had a flick, billionaire playboy with Talia al Ghul, and had the son, Damian Wayne. Now, he was not known to Batman, but after being attacked by Deathstroke and actually killing Ra's al Ghul, I know, shocker, because he has the Lazarus Pit, it does address that. He doesn't make it to the Lazarus Pit, and Talia actually stops Damian from rezzing. So when they realize that, Talia brings Damian to Bruce Wayne, Batman, and introduces him as his son. The whole movie goes over about, obviously Ra's al Ghul has differences from Batman. That's why Batman wouldn't join Ra's when Ra's wanted Batman to be his successor. Now, that means Damian was trained by the League of Assassins, which is very brutal, like they don't deserve to live, kill them, they're very controlling, they're very quick and everything. Batman's more methodical, he understands more of justice, if we have enough evidence to lock him away. Obviously, if y'all are Batman fans, you know that. Biggest example, Joker. He gets locked up, he gets away, causes havoc, rinse and repeat. So Batman's having this hard time because, Damian doesn't abide by Batman's rules. He goes by Ra's. So there's this real conflict. It doesn't get resolved in the movie. This leads into the Batman versus Robin, which is really cool because you always wanted to kind of experience, if you're a big Batman fan, an all-out battle between Batman and Robin, the master, the apprentice. But this movie, I think, does a really good job. They do battle, but it is and isn't the main point. It's more of the power struggle. Damian, at the very beginning of the movie, runs off, steals the Batmobile, which is hilarious. There's some really good dialogue, too, between Batman and his son. When he steals the Batmobile, he goes after a villain named Dollface. Now, I don't know if Matthew read comics or knows more about Dollface. I actually don't know much about Dollface. I actually wanted to ask Matthew, do you know much about the villain Dollface in the Batman comics?
Not a clue. But real quick, before you continue on, I just spoke with Howard's publicist. It's being worked on Howard getting here. So those that have tuned in for Howard, stay tuned. And because I bet anything, because I was told Howard is excited for this interview. I don't know if that's just blowing smoke, but we will probably still have him for an hour-long episode. My phone will probably ring here again in a minute, and because the publicist is checking in with Howard, and I will update as soon as I have something. But go ahead, David, continue on, and I'm going to sit here and mute and listen.
Unfortunately, Dollface isn't known very well to either one of us. However, he kind of gives that Dr. Pig vibe. I'm sure Matthew knows of Dr. Pig. And, he's got this Dollface over him. He's a big brute, like lost his hair. It's a big brute. Let me go ahead. I see we actually have Jason tuning in, letting us know. We definitely understand. We're really excited to hopefully still get him aired in. Thank you for still staying tuned. And also, if you know anything about Dollface, as well as all of our listeners, let us know. I'm actually interested to learn more about it.
I go on mute as soon as the damn dog barks. I was just unmuting just to say, screw you, Jason. You should be tuning in all the time. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my brother. But yeah, we're still waiting here. Hopefully Howard shows up. But yeah, this Dollface dude, I don't know that I've even heard of him. And I was on the phone when you were talking about him. But the Rogues guy, and I don't mean to interrupt you here, but I'm talking while my connection's good. The Rogues gallery of Batman is such a wide variety in him, and you can go back and find some that are very obscure, but were really cool concepts, man. And it's some of them I would like to see revisited. I named my dog after one, Magpie, and that's Maggie. Ask the modern day Batman fan who Magpie is, and they don't know. And she was kind of a precursor to Catwoman. But again, folks, for anybody tuning in, again, I see folks popping in and out on the YouTube channel and on Facebook. And so just stay tuned. We are working on getting Howard here. As you can see, I'm in the dark. You're only seeing my pretty face based on the computer screen's light. My professional little podcaster light is not working right now because it relies on power. I'm in a power outage. And but anyway, Howard's publicist is working on getting him here. Stay tuned in. If you're on the podcast, fast forward a little bit because you're hearing this later on. So stay tuned, everybody. And David, continue on with what you were talking about on that. I just wanted to chime in on Dollface because I don't freaking know nothing about that one.
Yeah, to give y'all a little bit of imagery, Dollface, like he said, big brute. He's lost his hair except for a little bit of strands. Now, he's got this broken doll face just like taped over his face. And all these kids, children, they're locked in dog crates. You know that you see like really sinister people have stacks of those metal cages, and these kids are stuffed in there. And Damian Wayne, Robin, he comes and he sees it, and he's furious. He cannot understand. There's no humanity left in this guy. He deserves to die. So he's ripping into this guy, and then the guy goes, "You don't understand. I love these kids. I love them. They can't be hurt if I turn them into dolls." So he's cutting these children up, keeping them alive, and attaching like saw blades and stuff to them, and tells children, "Protect me like I have protected you." Of course, Damian is like just knocking them down. I mean, like, but you're starting to see more of Bruce in him. You know, he's very ferocious. But, you know, he's dodging it. He's knocking it back. He's not killing them. He then, Batman, boom, blows up that roof, comes down. Damian's all pissed. He's like, I had this. And, you know, the fight finishes up. Batman's having to finish up everything as he does this smoke that pops. And it knocks everyone out. Damian's running after Dollface, who's booked for it. He knocks him down. I mean, he is truly torturing Dollface. Robin is, and he's talking about, I will show you what it's like. And Dollface is like trying to surrender. He's trying to run away. Robin throws those man, Matthew, if you know what they're called, that rope with the balls at the end that goes around the enemy's feet and knocks them down. They use it so much.
Yeah. Oh my God. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, he used that. Dollface like falls down. Guys, yeah, I'm assuming what Matthew's going to say. Let us know. I can't believe we're drawing a blank.
Yeah, and you'll know what it is. It's like you said, the two balls on the end, you throw it, it wraps around their feet, and it trips their ass. I was thinking a garrote, but that's a completely different weapon.
And man, like he's about to kill this guy, and he's got him down on his face. He's got his batarang, and then he throws it to the side of his face, and he says, "Justice, not vengeance. Justice." And he starts repeating it. So you're like, okay, this is a good start to the movie. And then the camera pans, and then behind him, you just see Dollface's heart just get ripped out of his chest. And then he falls down. Robin looks, just this shock. And then you see this ominous owl figure, a.k.a. Talon, who's got his heart in his hand. And he... Oh, go ahead.
I just pause right there. Heart in his hand. Folks, again, I see more people, new people tuning in. And again, on the live show, I just want to say once more, this wasn't a bait and switch. We are working on how we're getting here. I'm waiting to hear back from his publicist. Howard's having a little bit of trouble, technical difficulties. So we're working on that. So don't think, oh shit, these guys told us Atari and they're talking Batman. We just had to get on, and so I'm just waiting to hear back. And David's talking more because I am in a blackout right now. We don't know what happened. They're working on that technical difficulties, but of course it happened right at 9:00. Right at the second we were about to go live. And so that's just technology. But go ahead, David. Sorry, bud.
Yeah, no, definitely. We put some hard work into making this a really interesting interview for you guys. Even made a custom profile and everything. Matthew's even read the book. So we're really looking forward to this interview. And, we're just filling that space because, we'd hate to be 30 minutes, an hour late to when y'all are used to seeing us. So why not fill in? And, he comes in, we'll push an hour of all of that, assuming Howard still got an hour to give us. Now, when we get to that point and you see it's Talon, which if you're a comic book fan and stuff, you'll know is from the Court of Owls, which is a great introduction to this one because you don't see Court of Owls introduced very much into the animated series. Isn't that right, Matthew?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. So I'm sitting here nodding, and the podcast people can't see the nod. But yeah, I'm sorry. I do this every show. I got so many things going on trying to get Howard in here. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so anyways, Batman arrives and of course looks at Robin and he goes, "What have you done?" And dude, this has got to be almost, I'd say, the most sarcastic Robin, not in a playful way, but in an aggressive way. Don't demean Damian. He was raised by Ra's al Ghul. And so then, he tells Batman, "I wasn't the one who did it." Batman sees there's a feather underneath them. And he's like, "Well, who did?" And then Robin's like, "You're a detective. Figure it out yourself." And then runs off. And there's a couple of parts like that that's just awesome.
And you can go ahead and say it. Damian is a dick.
No, not like Dick Grayson, but no. Dick, as in an asshole.
Yeah, he is a total dick. He does grow later on,
but you kind of need that toughness. You have so much of Batman that's been raised where it's like, but for the good, you need that kind of balance, especially after so many Robins, Batwoman, Batgirl. They're all like for humanity, for justice. They all were raised based off of that. He's based off of, let's get to the bottom of good, no more evil shall walk this earth kind of thing. So of course, Batman still takes him, and they have the kind of same idea, but the ends don't justify the means in Batman's eyes. And that's actually referenced in here where Talon actually takes Robin from Batman and makes Robin his protege for becoming the new Talon. And Robin's like, "So you're saying the ends do justify the means?" And you could see that interest in Robin taking in. And that, of course, leads to the fight where Batman and Robin are having at it. And I love how you're watching just Batman's obviously like, "Okay, I'm a spar with you." And, then it starts getting a little bit more real, but then it really hits where you see he gets into the fight. He grabs Damian and he bends him over and then just smacks him with his knee, and the blood come out of Damian. And you kind of see where Batman is
whoa.
What caught your interest?
Because that is the exact same way that Bane breaks Batman's back in the original Nightfall comic.
Okay, so this one is a more standard move. Let me try to explain a little bit more. So in Bane, he lifts Batman up, back down, and then drops him over his knee, which breaks his spine. This one is something that you see Batman do very often. He takes a person's head, bends them over, and then
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so then you see he's like, "I have to pull it back." He was getting so aggressive because Damian's trying to kill Batman. That's his base instinct when he fights, to go for the kill. So Batman was like, okay, he kind of ties it up. He finishes, handcuffs Damian, and then grapples and leaves him hanging on a church. Of course, Damian, raised by the League of Assassins, grabs a little thing, cuts the wire, goes down, pushes Batman off the cliff. They're falling. And then, of course, Damian's stabbing Batman, and Batman is just holding Damian tight and then turns him where Batman just busts through everything with his back. And so now he's beaten up kind of from that fall. And then Damian still goes in for the kill for Batman. Batman ends up, obviously kicking Damian's ass, and Damian walks away from it, being too proud to admit his failure. But what I really love is this movie ends with Robin officially taking sides with Talon, goes to the Court of Owls, and then Talon announces his plans to betray Robin and to make Robin the sacrifice instead of Talon. And Robin's like, you tricked me. Batman was right about you. And so they say, okay, remove your mask, prove yourself. Robin removes his masks, and the leader of the Court of Owls recognizes him as Bruce Wayne's son and then makes the connection that Bruce Wayne is Batman. So then they're like, no, halt, change of plans, kill the boy. And the Talon's like, that wasn't the plan. Like, I don't want to do that. He's my protege. He's going to be just as good as me. And he's like, do it. And the Talon goes, okay, and goes to kill Robin. So then, he changes his mind because he sees the young Talon in Robin. So he then kills all the members of the Court of Owls. He turns on them. Then after that, he leaves Robin locked up. I see you unmuted.
Yeah. I was just thinking the Court of Owls. We were talking about this before. I don't know much about the Court of Owls. I selectively read comics. I like the trade paperbacks. I like the condensed storyline. I told you I was just reading the Old Man Logan comics on Comixology, but he kills the whole Court of Owls.
So in this animated movie, yeah.
Oh wait, hang on. Let me just say something real quick because I keep seeing people logging in. Folks, if you're just tuning in, we are still expecting Howard Warshaw. I'm waiting to hear back from his publicist. We're having technical difficulties. I'm having technical difficulties. Normally, I'm not this dark on the live show. I actually have professional lighting, a professional mic. If I sound fucked up tonight, wait, not fucked up because of the whiskey, but fucked up because the different microphones. That's why. And Howard was having some technical difficulties. I hear a lot of sirens in the background. I don't know if somebody hit a light pole in the internet because the internet's down too. I'm just on a hotspot, so if I'm sounding more fucked up than usual, it's not the whiskey. I swear. But yes, we are still hoping to have Howard in. I know it's getting late, but we're hoping to still have him for an hour because Howard, everybody involved is looking forward to this interview and about his book. I just want to touch on before we move on, David, hold your thoughts on this, on the Batman thing. This book, folks, is fantastic. It's what is the name of it, David? It's called Once Upon Atari: How I Made History by Killing an Industry. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't read this book, you owe it to yourself to read it, especially if you're my age and you were into Atari. I haven't laughed this damn hard at a book in a long time, and I'll tell Howard this when he makes it in, and if he doesn't make it in tonight, I promise you we will get this rescheduled in some way, shape, form, or fashion. But it is fantastic. You get some insight into Atari in the heyday of Atari, and right before the end, before Howard killed it. I'm just kidding. He gets the blame for it, but it's not really his fault. But it's a fun read, and it's such a fun read that I have no doubt that Howard is going to be a killer guest. Because as you all know, we don't run interviews; we have conversations, and so we're still hopeful that Howard is going to tune in. If he doesn't, I challenge you to read the book before we reschedule this show. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, so you know when we got Howard coming back. I swear to God, this wasn't a bait and switch, and we went from Atari to Batman. We're still expecting Howard, or I should say, we're hopeful that Howard will make it tonight. And if so, this will be an extended show. And if David has to puss out and run, then I'll handle the show myself. I'm just kidding, David. But yeah, I just wanted to say that because I keep seeing people tuning in. I know y'all are tuning in for Howard Warshaw, and so we're still working on that. We just got some technical difficulties going around, so stay tuned. And go ahead, David. I hope you wrote down where you were at.
I'm way too excited to forget, man. Yeah, guys, what he was saying, please make sure that you're still staying tuned. Whether you're on the podcast, you can go in. Our YouTube will notify you when we can get this rescheduled and in the works. We have been told that he is just as excited as us. So we really plan on having him in and being able to talk.
Upper management has just tuned in, and they're saying there's no 2017 Batman versus Robin on HBO Max.
Oh, that was me responding to Jason's about, is it a new movie? I was just popping it in there, telling him it's not new. It's the 2017 Batman versus Robin.
Comma in there.
Yeah, I was doing it while you were, and then I looked up because you were saying something. I thought I was going to have to respond. My apologies, guys.
No problem. Because I know upper management is watching because they wanted to see Howard, and so I thought that was upper management responding because I said, well, if you say anything, it's going to come as Geek Insider. And I said, oh, well, I'll just tell Howard it's upper management, which is a total thing in his book. So anyway, go ahead again. I thought that was upper management.
So anyways, please stay tuned. We've talked about that a lot. They're going to be coming in, and we have a lot of questions for him. I'm sure he's got a lot to share with us. Matthew brought up a really good point. I think that the Court of Owls is very popular, but not a lot of people actually know about it. I'll give you a little bit of a rundown. The Court of Owls is an organization that kind of runs how things are organized and performed in Gotham. This is also kind of like you've got the gangs and all that, but they're not like drug runners or anything. It's actually made out of Gotham's wealthiest. They sit around in robes like a cult with an owl mask on, very ominous. And, they basically control the way that Gotham goes, and they send out people to kill. Now, with the Court of Owls, they actually orchestrated the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne. And so it does touch that in this movie. The Court of Owls is a very interesting storyline, as well as going between the really aggressive fighter of Batman and the detective Batman, because he has to figure out, obviously, the Court of Owls is not wanting to be caught. They're secretly controlling where Gotham goes. Also, so they kind of don't take the downfall if nothing goes as planned. Now, going back to where we were, Talon does end up killing off the Court of Owls in this movie, and he goes to Robin and says, "You'll never truly be mine until Batman's out of the way. I would never ask you to finish this, so I'll do it for you." He locks Robin into this rejuvenation tank, kind of like a Bacta tank in Star Wars, except for this one kills you, and then it keeps you alive. But then you can only be alive for 24 hours, and then you have to go be back in the tank. So huge downside. So while Robin is trying to get out, they ambush Bruce Wayne at his mansion. Obviously, Bruce Wayne suits up, becomes Batman. Nightwing is there to help because Nightwing, throughout this entire story, has been babysitting Damian Wayne. And I love some of the points Nightwing does. He goes, I snuck out just as much as this when I was a kid. And, Bruce is like, but it's different. And he's like, how, Bruce? He's like, because he's my son. And, obviously he's having these struggles. And then Batman admits, maybe he's not my son. Maybe that blood doesn't matter. Maybe it's, that's when Damian runs to the Court of Owls. So resuming where we're at, Damian escapes and he calls Alfred and says their weakness is sub-zero temperatures. So Alfred is preparing the Batcave and basically turns the whole place sub-zero temperature, freezing all of the Court of Owls Talon assassins that are there frozen and to be destroyed. But Talon isn't one of the ghouls that's from a rejuvenation tank. He's an actual human. So he's fighting. He kicks Nightwing's ass. And I hate that. Guys, I mean, I have a tattoo. I hate it because Dick is so awesome and he's so smooth with his movements. But to be fair, before that, Nightwing did get stabbed through all of his limbs. So, touche. I mean, he wasn't in his full fighting power. So then, Batman. Oh, what's your question?
Is this a good part to pause, or do you need to finish the thought?
No, it's a good place to pause. I'll remember.
All right. we need to pay some bills around here, and I want to play our first official sponsor spot. And we actually have an official sponsor coming, an all-encompassing official sponsor, which will trip out the audience on who it is. But we also have a kick-ass sponsor, another kick-ass sponsor. That's not the official sponsor of the show, but they're working out some stuff with us that they're going to be giving some stuff, or well, I'm just going to say it. We're going to be giving some stuff away of theirs very, very soon. Details to come. I know y'all keep hearing that on some giveaway stuff, but it is coming. I promise you, there's some really cool stuff coming down the pipe. You want to hit that subscribe button. You want to hit that bell so that you're notified when we're live. But it's not just restricted to the live audience. Folks on the podcast, you're going to be able to enter these contests as well. But this is something that's going to definitely appeal to you modern day gamers. And here it goes.
Check it out. MobileEdge.com has award-winning products with innovative features and contemporary, edgy designs that empower you to look sharp and travel smart with your mobile tech. Your beloved, not to mention expensive gaming gear and mobile tech devices are an extension of you, so give them the protection and style they deserve wherever you go. Find them at MobileEdge.com and protect your tech with Mobile Edge. Bring it on. Hey Geek Insiders, Mobile Edge has a special coupon code for our dedicated listeners. Get 25% off your Mobile Edge gear using coupon code GEEK25. That's GEEK25. Geek out.
All right, folks, and I do want to clarify that one was Meredith Loughran on the commercial. She had produced that because we've had a relationship with Mobile Edge for quite some time. That code is still good. If you go to coregamingusa.com, they have re-enabled it, and so you can get 25% off at coregamingusa.com, and they've got new products that aren't listed here. We got a new bump coming, or added bump coming. We'll see whatever we're going to do, but they got some kick-ass stuff. If you are into e-gaming, you are into gaming going over to your buddy's house, you need to go check out coregamingusa.com, and of course put in the promo code GEEK25 and you will get 20%.
Yeah, of course. Like Matthew was saying, we're really excited. People on the podcast can still use that. Don't forget, if you want to be more involved and see more of these upcoming things, please come to YouTube, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss these opportunities going forward in the future. I just go over a little bit of that, Matthew, because you were cutting out a little bit due to that hotspot. But there is that code GEEK25 that you can go on and get that discount. It is good, even though that was Meredith Loughran. Rest in peace. Back to the movie. This is maybe the most exciting part. Batman suits up. Yeah.
We just had I just had a PM, and I should have said this before. I'm sorry. Folks, if you're just tuning in for Howard Warshaw, we're still working on it. I know the show would usually end in 10 minutes, but I swear to God, if Howard comes in, even if David has to leave, I'm going to get as much time with Howard as I can, because his new book, I keep forgetting the name. I've read the damn thing, I promise, or half of it. It's called Once Upon Atari, How I Made History by Killing an Industry. If you haven't read it, you haven't checked it out, there's even a damn documentary. But the story of the book is great. Howard's coming in. If he doesn't make it tonight, I promise you we will get this rescheduled at some future date, whether it's a week from now or 2 weeks from now. But we are still working on Howard coming in, folks. I keep seeing folks popping in, and so I know there are some of you that are not some of you. I know a lot of you are not here for mine and David's pretty faces. You're here for Howard. And so, as you can see, if you're on the in the YouTube or on the Facebook, you can see the little thing scrolling across the bottom saying there's technical difficulties. His publicist did call me; they are working on this, and so hopefully Howard will show up. So, if you are truly an Atari fan and you're wanting to hear this, and which I really suspect this is a show that any hardcore gamer from, or not even hardcore, any gamer from my generation and a little bit after, you're going to want to check this interview out. So stay fucking tuned, ladies and gentlemen. So go ahead.
Batman gets in the specialized suit, which you can see he gets in a ton of the different ones, like Batman versus Superman and stuff. This one is different, though. Really big, really badass, but he suits up, the doors open, and Batman says, "Go back to hell, you sons of bitches," and proceeds to wipe the floor with all of these Talon soldiers. At that point, when he starts finishing, all of them are frozen and stuff. The Talon, which is he's not a ghoul, he's the actual human that's in the Talon suit, takes the Batmobile, hijacks it, drives it off a cliff into Batman's suit, completely annihilating the suit, the Batmobile, and everything. Talon comes out. He thinks Bruce is dead. He goes to finish it. Boom, the back pops off. And Batman comes up. He rips his cowl off. And he said, "Not only have you destroyed my house," and he starts listening to everything, "destroyed my house, hurt my friends, hurt Dick," starts going through like everything. And then he goes, "But more importantly, you fucked with my son. And I'm going to enjoy this," and starts beating the crap out of Talon.
Damn.
Talon starts doing some really cheap moves and everything. And then ultimately, Batman is almost down for the count. He's never truly. But Damian's back. He comes in and he starts battling Talon. Obviously, this battle is like any other battle that you're going to see. Batman and Robin, they end up taking Talon out. But once he finishes doing the battle, Damian bests Talon. And he's got this blade right up to his throat. And he's basically talking to him like, "I am not you. I don't just kill." And then it goes back and forth. Damian is over Batman. And then he goes, "I'm not." He's like, "I told you, I'm not you. I'll never be you. I won't kill my father." So it figures out that Talon killed his father from one of the other flashbacks. You didn't know if it was his father or who the guy was, but it just became apparent that it was that. And then when Damian's got the blade up to Talon's throat and he's like, "I won't kill my father." And that's when Talon realizes that Damian is Batman's son. So he goes, "Never second guess your urges." Talon grabs the blade and shoves it through his own throat, killing himself. Damn. Damian is mortified, and Batman comes up, hand on the shoulder. "I'm proud of you." Damian says, You're always in my mind. Talia's always in my mind. Raish is always in my mind. I don't know who I am, except for y'all." That he needs to leave. So Batman lets Damian leave.
That's one thing that has always bothered me on between the Batman animated series and the animated movies, and then even the movie Batman Begins. They changed the pronunciation of Roz's name. It's been Raish. It's been Roz. There's another one. They changed the pronunciation of his name. But he, to me, has always been one of the most iconic characters. He called Batman detective before Batman was the detective. He just called him it, and he always. I mean, I can't say before he was a detective because he started out in Detective Comics, So,
but before, I think Batman himself thought of him as a detective.
Right.
He thought of himself as a crime fighting, like, I do this for the betterment of people. And Roz was, you're a detective, like a damn good one.
And that's true. And he was the world's, or he is the world's greatest detective. And that's one thing to me that was missed out on the movies, on every single fucking movie, except the Batman. They did show him being a little more the detective. Michael Keaton's touched on it, but no one has really focused on the detective aspect. The Batman did a pretty good job of it, but Pattinson is a little young. He's still got to develop those detective skills. But we're seeing more of that in the animated movies, and you and I have touched on this before, that DC, yes, they lag behind Marvel. Marvel's on a whole new level, a whole different level when it comes to the regular movies, mainstream movies. But DC is on another level when it comes to the animated movies. They've made some good live actions, of course. There's plenty that you and I love. But the animated movies, they've kicked some fucking ass on the animated movies. And real quick, one more time, folks, I know it's coming up on the hour mark. We're going to give this a little more time for Howard to try to come in. If he does, we're going to extend this show as long as we can. But Howard was having some technical difficulties. As those of you in the live show can see, it's still going across the bottom. We're hoping to resolve this and that we still get time with Howard. If we do not get time with Howard tonight, we will get to, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, welcome, Howard.
I am so sorry. This was not my thing to do this, but as you probably know I'm a psychotherapist, don't you?
Yeah,
yes, sir.
Of course.
I had an emergency. I mean, this was like kind of a life and death thing. So I apologize, but I was totally consumed. I'm sorry. I hope you will still have some airtime for me, or if you want to do this another time, I will do my best.
No, our fans are excited. We've had an uproar.
Yeah,
let me tell you, this has been an insane week in the therapy world. I got to tell you, holy crap.
Well, Howard, and I tell you, if you can see, I'm in the dark here at 9 o'clock or 7 o'clock Pacific. Exactly when we were supposed to go live, we had a power outage. I've been out for an hour. I'm on my hotspot, so you'll hear me cut out. But folks, Howard Scott Warshaw is here. I've been telling you, I wasn't bullshitting. He is here.
No, Matthew is the real deal. There's no doubt about that. And I didn't want to make a liar out of anybody.
But Howard, do we still have you for an hour? Do you need to cut out in 30?
You can have me for an hour right now. It's the least I could do.
Fantastic.
I know we got plenty of info to go over. We're really excited.
And now I can do the intro that I planned at the top of the show, folks. Tonight, we are chatting with computer programmer turned video game developer turned psychotherapist / author, Howard Scott Warshaw, and his book, or about his book, Once Upon Atari, How I Made History by Killing an Industry. Howard, welcome to the show. And I have to say, one thing I learned from your book, sir, is that I spend entirely too much time on social media, because I can't tell you how many damn times I try to hit the like button on certain parts of the book. Seriously. I haven't laughed this hard at a book in a long time. In fact, I think it was Tim Allen's Don't Stand Too Close to a Naked Man since the last time that I laughed this hard. I admittedly, I've only made it through about 57% of the book, according to my Kindle. I am thoroughly enjoying this. I don't get time to sit down and read. I love to read. But when your publicist approached me, I was like, holy shit. One, I didn't know this book existed. Two, this is my jam. As you can see, I'm of the age where Atari was a part of my life. This fool over here, not so much. But Howard, that all being said, tell the audience who you are, what games you're responsible for, and what your book is about.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm not going to apologize except for just one more time for coming in late. But Matthew, I am so pleased to hear you're enjoying the book. To tell you the truth, I hear you're laughing at it a lot. And honestly, I was kind of going for that. I like the idea of injecting some humor into anything that I do and to have content too. So who am I? I am Howard Scott Warshaw. I was a game programmer at Atari back in the very early 80s, where I made several games of note and notoriety, and they're notorious, let's face it. It's just notorious. I did Yar's Revenge, the game that was assigned as a coin-op conversion, and I turned it into an original franchise for Atari because I didn't want to do a coin-op conversion. That's not my thing. Then I did Raiders of the Lost Ark. I did Raiders of the Lost Ark, the first game from a movie in history. Got to work with Steven Spielberg, had some amazing experiences trying to meet with Steven Spielberg and leading up to it. And because of the success that I had with Yar's Revenge and Raiders of the Lost Ark, I was treated to the opportunity to do E.T., to do the worst video game in history. And so I did that. And then after that, there's my great unsung work, which is Saboteur, because immediately after I did the shortest video game development in history with E.T., which was done in 5 weeks and 1 day, I followed that with the longest video game development in history, because Saboteur I worked on and pretty much completed at Atari, but it wasn't released for another 20 years. Whoa. So I have the shortest development and I have the longest development. So you never know what develops when you're talking with me. That's for sure.
And, you know, I hadn't gotten that far in the book to learn about that one because I didn't know that. I do know, you know, the Yar's Revenge, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then, of course, the aforementioned E.T. But I was a geek at an early age. You call them nerds, I call them geeks, but
both are acceptable.
Yeah, and man, you coined a phrase. I don't know if you coined it, but you use it in the book, "Nerd World Country." I fucking love it. And Howard, if you're not a fan of coarse language, I cuss in my sleep, but let me know. I can dial it back 9 notches.
Let me tell you something. As a therapist, I always tell my clients that language is not restricted here. All I ask is that you tell the truth and you communicate. Whatever language it takes to communicate effectively, that's A-O-fucking-K.
That's what we like.
All right. And David does have some questions. Like I said, I've been able to start reading the book. David, unfortunately, has an issue. He doesn't have the time to read the books, and also he gets headaches from reading books. But like I said, I've been enjoying it. But I also checked out some of your other interviews. And so I know that people are hyper focused on E.T. And I do want to touch on it for those tuning in for the E.T. thing, but I don't want to give anything away. One, I haven't finished the book and I don't know how the dig turned out. I had read stuff that the dig was going on, but I don't know what was found. And I don't want that ruined for me or the audience, because there is a lot of fun in this book, man. Dude, you described some things going on in the office that I can relate to, working in offices. I'm a writer, I'm a creative type. I program stuff. In fact, I used to hand code HTML, which is the stupidest freaking thing you could ever do. But you're responsible. A lot of people focus on that you killed the gaming industry, you fucked up ET. But you're responsible for a lot of firsts in gaming, man.
A lot of firsts.
Yes, sir. And a lot that are still used, or not a lot. Matter of fact, I would dare to say all of them are still used today, especially Yar's Revenge. Tell the audience your first.
Well, first,
The first of the first.
I do want to tell. I mean, first of all, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Matthew. I really appreciate it because I spent 4 years writing this book. This was the project where if I would have known what it was going to be before I started it, I'm not sure if I would have done it. So I'm glad I did not know what it would take going in, which is not unlike the ET experience also. And most of my games, it's a journey. It's a voyage of discovery. So with Yar's Revenge, this was my first game. Now, not a lot of people know this, but when I first interviewed at Atari, they rejected me. They actually rejected me. I had to beg my way in. I mean, I became one of the prototypical Atari people. I mean, I was all about Atari, but they didn't get it at first. So I literally begged my way in and wore them down and went in there for a huge pay cut and went on probation just so I could get a chance to be in there. I did everything I could just to be there. And then I get there and I have begged and pleaded, I'll do anything you say, anything. And the first thing they do is they assign me a coin-op conversion of Star Castle. And I say, I don't really want to do this. So, because that's kind of me. So, but I didn't just say, I don't want to do it. What I said to them was, look, this game is going to suck. This game on this machine, it's going to suck. Doing a vector game on the 2600, especially back then when you only had 4K of RAM and 128 bytes 128 bytes of RAM and only 4K of ROM, that's just, you can't do it. It's not going to work. So I told him that would suck. I can't afford to have my first game suck. So I created another arrangement of what I felt were what I would call the topographical properties of Star Castle. And I said, look, here's a configuration I think would work on the machine. It'd be kind of cool. Let's go with this. And so to their credit, they said, okay. I was really lucky there. And I started putting together a game, and I needed this game to be, this was going to be my calling card to enter the world of video game creators. Right. And that was something I took very seriously. So what did I do? I did things that anything I could imagine that I'd never seen before, because I wanted this to be groundbreaking. I want every game I do to be groundbreaking. And so one of the first things I did was I came up with the concept for a big payoff sequence, because you usually don't have huge payoff sequences on the 2600. And I thought, I'm going to do something just really spectacular. And I thought up a huge animation sequence that never actually went into the game. But I did have the idea of having a huge payoff sequence. But along the way, I started off with animating everything. Everything in the game moves. It was the first full screen explosion. It was one of the first elaborate death sequences. It was, I can't even think all these things. It was the first marketing approved Easter egg. I actually put the Easter egg in and made it a themed thing with the game. It was the first game. It was the first video game with a backstory. Right. Okay, no one had ever done that before. I invented the backstory for a video game. And I did it because I was afraid of marketing. I was afraid that marketing would do something lame with the game. So I wanted to make sure I could name and title the game. And in fact, I could tell you that. So you want to hear the story of how Yar's Revenge got named Yar's Revenge?
Yes.
I know it, but yes, tell the audience.
It's a fun story. So the game all along, my working title in my head for the game was Time Freeze. That was my working title because that was going to be the big payoff sequence. I had this whole idea where time would freeze and things would start section by section on the screen, checking off, and here we go. It's going to be very cool. Never happened. But I had that concept, and that was the thing. And then it was time when the game came together and people loved the game. And there was a period where the game sucked and I was sweating. I mean, I was just, it was not an easy birth, as it were. But I needed this game to work, and it got to a point where the game really was cool and people were digging the game and loving it. And now they were saying, hey, we're going to start putting the package together and naming the game. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah. And I said, okay, well, listen, can I submit a name? Can I submit a name, for the game? And they said, well, sure. There's still time. There's still time. And I said, okay, talking with the product manager from marketing, I said, look, come back tomorrow. come back tomorrow morning. I will have a submission for you to put in for the game. He goes, okay. And he takes off. So this is like mid-afternoon. So I start thinking, I want to make up a name. I want to make up something. I don't know if you've ever tried to make up a word. It's really hard because whatever you think of just sounds stupid. It just sounds stupid. And I couldn't think of it, but I did realize that, I've had a bucket list for a long time. I've always had a bucket list. Things go on, things come off. But one thing that's always been on my bucket list is to add a word to the English language. I always thought that would be a cool thing to do. And I thought, Pac-Man is like a huge thing. I thought if I do a game that's good enough and it becomes popular enough, the names of the things in the game will become common parlance. And this was my chance. This is because I'm not going to get many chances to add a word to the English language. And so I thought, this is it. So I want to do something cool. And I can't think of anything. Everything is just too stupid. But being the programmer that I am, I started to think, instead of just making up a name, what I should do is I should use an algorithm to derive a game. I should use some sort of a cryptology kind of ideas. And so I started to think, okay, so, what can we do? We can do anagrams, or we can spell things forwards or backwards. And then I started thinking, spelling stuff backwards, that's always fun. And I thought, well, what's a word that's going to be a really good one to spell backwards? And I started to think, Ray Kazar, who was the CEO of Atari at the time, Ray spelled backwards. Well, that's Yar. And Yar, if it's got a Y or a Z in it, that's pretty good for sci-fi, right? So I thought, Yar, that doesn't sound too bad. That doesn't sound ridiculous. And I thought, okay, and where's the game going on? Where's the setting? So his last name is Kazar. He didn't spell it with a Z, but I put a Z in it. I thought, okay, so we're going to make it Razak. And I thought, Razak, yeah. Now that kind of sounds cool. So I got the Yarian Revenge of Razak 4. And then I started to think of this idea. And I thought, what's better than a name for a game is a name and a story. That's better than just a name. So I just sat down at my desk. I took out a notepad and a pencil, and I sat there and I wrote all night. I spent the entire night that night writing a story that was called The Yarian Revenge of Razak 4. And the idea was these are going to be houseflies that got on an interplanetary spaceship, and they mutated and they killed all the humans and they took over and they wound up in the solar system, the Razak solar system. And the thing is, there's this big monster that came to town, blew away one of the planets. And so that's this thing in the center of the screen, because I came up with this idea, this graphic idea that nobody had ever seen that kind of stuff before, right? Is the glittering ion zone, right? And I needed a reason that's there. And so that ion zone, the storyline is that's the remains of the eviscerated planet, Razak 4. And that's what the game is about. It's getting revenge for the fact that they knocked out one of our planets. So there's the setting. I wrote this like about a 10 or 12 page little sci-fi story. And that was it. I finished the whole thing around 5:30. So I just laid down on the floor of my office and slept for like an hour and a half or 2 hours. When the admins came in, I gave them the sheets. I said, here, type this up, please. And a little while later, the guy from marketing comes back. And so I give him the submission, and he goes, okay, great. Here we go. And I said, by the way, I've got the name and I've also got a story. He's like, a story? Yeah, that's cool. We'll see. So he goes, okay. So he goes running back. And so then I get some rest for the rest of the day. And the next day, the guy comes in, the marketing guy, and I say to him, hey, what's going on? I said, is my name in? Is it in for the submission? He goes, oh yeah. He goes, it's in. And I said, have they decided yet? He goes, no, not quite yet. I said, okay, listen, I want to tell you a secret. Okay. But you've got to swear that you're not going to tell anyone about this. And he goes, okay, sure. I won't tell anybody. I said, okay. So, the Yar, the name in Yar's Revenge. He goes, yeah. I go, what's that spelled backwards? And he goes, Ray. I go, right. And, the Razak solar system, what's that spelled backwards? And he goes, Razak, Kazar, Ray Kazar. And I go, yeah. He goes, oh my God, does Ray know about this? And I said, well, of course Ray knows about this. I wouldn't do this without Ray knowing about it, but I don't want you to tell anybody because, it's going to unduly influence the naming. I don't want to do that. I want this to be a fair shake. And he goes, okay. So I swear him to secrecy another 2 times, and then I let him go. And at this point, I know 3 things for sure. For one, I know he is going to run right back to marketing and tell everyone. Okay, I know that. And I realized that nobody in marketing has the balls to go talk to Ray about this right away, right? I figure that's the second thing I know. And that's good because the third thing I know is Ray has no idea about any of this. I pulled this out of my ass. And that's it. And then the next day he comes back and goes, guess what? He goes, we're going with Yars. We're going to go with Yars Revenge. I said, oh, that's great. Fantastic. That's great. And there it was. And they said, even we're thinking about maybe we're going to do something with that story. And then they decided to make a comic book of it. And that was one of the big firsts of anything, because that was the first ancillary product, the first backstory. And it was also because there was a comic book that went with it, I became the first Atari programmer to have their name go out on a product.
Exactly.
And that was a big sore point, because Atari did not want to credit programmers. Atari wanted Atari to have credit for everything that comes out of Atari. But they never let anyone before, and I don't think they ever let anyone after. I think that was the only time a programmer's name went out with the product. And so that was kind of cool.
But Howard, you're leaving off the most important first. That was the first fucking game with a pause.
It was the first. It's true. I forget. There's so many firsts. I forget. I actually kind of invented pause mode. So yeah, Yars Revenge had a built-in pause to it, and you could. So you didn't have to sacrifice your high score to the bathroom, or get a long enough controller that you could multitask. But
and so every gamer out there listening to the show, you owe your piss breaks to Howard Scott Warshaw.
I think I speak on behalf of everybody. Thank you.
Well, you are most welcome. Go ahead.
Now, that did actually lead into a question, if you don't mind, Matthew, that just kind of...
No, I've been working hard in the whole show.
You've had so many firsts, and I'm really enjoying getting to learn and know. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten a chance to read the book yet. How many laughs he's getting out of it, I've got to check it out. It'll just take me longer, but I'll be able to knock it out. But with you being able to do so many firsts, like putting the pausing into it, could you share with us what was your idea that the future of gaming was going to be like? And is it anything like it is now? With you inventing so much like the pause button, was there anything that you thought of that still came to fruition?
I mean, things that I thought of but couldn't do back then, looking forward. I'll tell you honestly, when I was there about 3 months, there was this great brainstorm, and there's some great stories in the Once Upon Atari book about things that happened at the brainstorm that were like unbelievable. But one of the things that was believable was that I had some wacky product ideas. Because they wanted to come up with new product ideas. And I had 2 principal product ideas, neither of which actually got done. One of which I think ultimately is sort of starting to happen now. Only took like nearly 40 years, I guess, for this one to go. But what it was the video vignette. The idea that you put a bunch of characters in a place and you assign personality traits to the characters. Yeah, can you believe I became a therapist? You assign personalities to them, and then you just have them interact, and you watch it. So it's like a dynamic show that you create, and you can tweak it, and you could do that. Now, the idea of trying to do that on the 2600 was ridiculous at the time, so it was absurd. But I wanted to do that was like a goal of mine. I thought it'd be really cool to have what I call the video vignette. You set up a bunch of things, and you watch them interact. And there's been a variety of products over the years that have sort of moved in that direction. So that was kind of interesting. But I think the product idea I had that absolutely could have been done then, but they wouldn't touch it. Because I have kind of a goofy sense of humor, and I have a goofy sense of not humor also. I'm just kind of a goofy guy. But at the time, not a lot of people know this, but Atari had the single biggest and most sophisticated holography lab in the world. It was just, they had invested a bunch of money. Nobody else was really doing it that much. And they had the premier holography lab in the world. And I thought this was really cool. So what I suggested to them was that, hey, what we can do is you get like, because we could print out these Mylar holograms. And if you get them lit right, it's all good. So what I said was you get Mylar, get about a 6 or 6.5 foot tall, 2.5, 3 foot wide sheet of Mylar. And you get movie stars who are willing to pose naked, and you get those on the hologram and you can shower with the stars. That was my idea. We were going to do naked holograms for the shower, that you could shower with your favorite star. And, or if you can't get stars, it would be shower with, some beautiful naked people who nobody knows, But I just thought this would be a great application of the holography. And believe it or not, even with a ghost company, they did not really want to shoot that one.
Yeah, they even talked about shell companies and all that. And I was laughing because this is in the book, folks. And plug here, folks, if you have not read this book, it's available on Amazon, on Kindle. That's where I picked it up, so that as soon as I was told about this, I went and grabbed it. But it's called Once Upon Atari, How I Made History Killing an Industry. And there are a lot of great anecdotes about working at Atari. There is a lot of great stories about things going on behind the scenes and the creation process. And then I also like how you explain things about programmers. That's just the section that I just got through. I think I'm on coming up on chapter 11. But I know that you joined right around the time Rob Fulop completed Missile Command, and which I unfortunately spent many, many, many hours attempting to master. And like I said, we'll touch on ET and stuff here in a minute, folks. I know that's one reason why you're tuning in. But were there any other, and there's another big game that you fucking created too, besides the plop that we'll get to. But were there any other big blockbuster games that were developed during your time with Atari? Because I know Activision had some, and I'll touch on that in a minute. But, were there any other, big titles that came out in Atari during your tenure?
Oh, there were plenty of big titles. I mean, Todd Fry did the Pac-Man version. And that a lot of people say that between Pac-Man and E.T., that was like the 1-2 punch that really took the air out of the industry.
Hey, I spent a lot of time playing Pac-Man on Atari, so
it was a very playable game, but a lot of people didn't like it because it didn't match the coin-op, just like a lot of people didn't like E.T. because it didn't match the movie. It's there's a lot of absurd things, and the book does cover a lot of that stuff. We also go into what was the real cause of the video game industry crash, because a lot of people know I was a programmer, and now people probably get the idea that I'm a therapist, but I also have a degree in economics, and I was going to be a business major. Yeah, I'm like one of these people who's
jack of all trades over here.
Yep, I'm hoping to be queen someday. And because it takes a lot of different hats to really be able to explain and analyze what really went on, because it wasn't about ET, it wasn't one game. But it's fun when people do say it was one game, though. But there was a lot of big titles that came out while I was at Atari. The Sword Quest series came out while I was there.
Very cool.
There was Atari Coin-Op was producing some major titles. That was another first for yours. That was an almost first, but it was just amazing to even be in the running. Was that a guy named Dave Toyer from Coin-Op? He happened to be married to a woman who was the first graphics designer in the history of video games, Marilyn Toyer. She worked with us in the VCS department. And her husband, Dave Toyer, who did Missile Command for Atari, and he did Tempest for Atari, the Coin-Ops.
Oh, nice.
And he was looking at Yars' Revenge, and he was thinking, we should do a coin-op version of Yars' Revenge. So on the 2600, we constantly would get requests to do coin-op games on the 2600.
Right.
No one had ever talked about doing a coin-op version of a 2600 game. That blew me away, for about 5 minutes until it didn't happen. But still, it was one of the great almosts in history.
Well, and David, of course, like I said, I got a lot of questions. So, and I know you got a few. I'll let you chime in here.
Blow them away, man.
One of the few
Fire
times. One of the few times I'll let you chime in.
We talked about so much, and one of the things, obviously, he's been into Atari and stuff, obviously of his age. But I gotta ask, with you doing therapy and everything now, do you still have time to play video games? And is there a current one that's your favorite?
Honestly, I have had a very ugly relationship with Soda Crush. It's been pretty brutal. And there's been a few of the Crush genre and some of the King games that really have captured my interest here and there. I also will play the occasional golf game. I can't get out on the links as much as possible, but I do like video golf because, the carts are cheaper to rent, and it's it's less strain on the back.
And the course fees are cheaper.
Mobile gaming is getting big.
It kind of piggybacking off of that, and then I want to move back to the book. Was there ever a time that you saw a video game release or played one that you were just like, holy shit, this has made a really big, foray or step in technology? Or did you kind of see it coming all along?
I think I saw where games were going and how they needed to move to more elaborate graphics and then move to 3D, VR, and AR. I still believe that AR is going to far outstrip VR in terms of important contributions. But if you think about it, in movies, in technology, in training, video games have changed our world. Yes, this is another thing that I do talk about quite a bit in the book, is just the impact that video games have had on our day-to-day lives and will continue to have. And these technologies, it used to be that you'd have to go to universities and Defense Department budgets to make big advances in technology. And you look in the last 30, 40 years, a lot of the real advances came from people in the video game industry, especially in graphics and reality processing, reality in quotes. And so, the different ways you can enhance or modify reality in perception. And that was huge. But I'll tell you, there was one game that will always stand in my mind as one of the great steps in video game development. It was just huge. And that was GTA 3, Grand Theft Auto 3.
Oh, yes, sir.
And I'll tell you why, because that is a game. What's really funny is that the game has the most reprehensible theming there is, and the game got a lot of shit because, you go around and you kill hookers to get your basic money stake and stuff like that. And, it's a living. But, the thing is, what GTA really, I don't think was fully appreciated for was an amazing step forward in design. Okay. Because if you think about video game development, the way video game development goes, the one thing you can count on reliably is increasing the technology, right? You can get more polys on a screen. You can get more colors. You can get higher dynamic range. You can improve the technology reliably, right? But to design, to really get new concepts, to really get the design innovation, you can't count on that. That just takes real insight and people who have breakthrough ideas and can deliver them. And that's the challenge. And GTA 3, what they did that to me really blew me away was, if you look at GTA 3 graphically, it's not really an amazing game. It's not leaping ahead of all the other games and things like that. Right. But it's good. The graphics are good. They're just not revolutionary, but they don't need to be. But if you think about it, a lot of games, when they have a lot of levels, they just keep making different levels and different levels, but you play a level, then you go on to the next level. What GTA 3 did was they had one level, and they put all the games and all the gaming on that level. And what that did, and then instead you have different missions. You have missions over here, missions over there, missions that take you different places. What's really interesting about that is that you can learn things in the execution of one mission that help you solve other missions. You have cross-mission learning. The other thing they do in GTA 3 that's fantastic is they avoid what I call the lock and key problem. Because a lot of games have a lock and key problem, which is, here's a door. How are you going to blast through this door? Well, you need this special grenade. But the fact is there's 15 other weapons that logically should be able to blow this door open, but they fix it so you can only use the one weapon because they're trying to make it harder for you to play the game so they can hide that weapon somewhere and blah, blah, blah. To me, that's lazy game design. In GTA 3, all the weapons work in all the situations the way you expect them to work. So if you have to go kill some character, you can stab him. You can shoot him from close range. You can shoot him from far away. You can stuff him in a trunk of a car, take the car to a crusher and have the car crushed. You can do all these different things and they all work. The game works as you would expect real life to work. So there's multiple ways to accomplish any mission. And because of that, there is what we call the metagaming. There's a thing we used to talk about at Atari, which is metagaming. Gaming is playing the game. Metagaming is talking shit with other people about the game or comparing your strategies and stuff with other people in the game. And GTA 3 got this configuration where there was so much opportunity to find new and different ways to play it that it made a bigger and richer life for the people who played it in terms of their interactions outside of the game. I thought that was huge. And that was real smart design innovation, not technology innovation. And to me, that's a huge part of gaming.
Yeah, definitely so. And it made such a leap there for the open world type thing. Yes, there had been other open world games, but this one really took it to another level where, you could go up and carjack somebody and folk, cover your ears if you got sensitive ears, but you could pull it into a back alley and have sex with a hooker, and you'd see the car. But it did make some leaps there. And if I'm cutting out here, folks, it's again because I am on my hotspot, because as you can see, there's a power outage, and if you haven't done so, run out and get Once Upon Atari, How I Made History by Killing an Industry. Howard, my battery is starting to die. I still got a little time here. But I wanted to kind of pivot back to the book. And I loved the Rob in Vegas story. But
it's a great story.
It is. And folks, if you want to hear it, pick up the book. But aside from the night of the whole, you can't pee in those bushes, we might have customers in there, can you give us a Todd story that didn't make it into the book?
The Todd stories that didn't make it into the book really shouldn't be told anywhere because they are pretty extreme. But I can tell you that because I think he's very proud of it and I am very proud of him for it. Todd has been in recovery for many years, very successfully for over 2 decades. And that's not really a great story like for your listeners. The things that preceded him going into recovery, those are some amazing stories. There's some crazy stuff. I can tell you about, when the money first hit, because initially there wasn't much money. There really wasn't much money at Atari for the engineers. But after a while, things really started to take off and there was a good deal of money. And Todd got a good deal of money. And there was, he was really into this Alfa Romeo. He loved the idea of the Alfa Romeo. That was his dream car. And so he got an Alfa Romeo and he was driving it around. And at one point, he drove it a little too hard, I guess, or whatever. And the engine overheated and just burnt out. And instead of calling a tow truck or anything like that, he basically just left it on the side of the road and went and bought another Alfa Romeo.
Oh my God.
And there was the time where we used to see who could park really close to the front door. That was a game we used to play, who can park closest to the front door. And there were a number of people who ended up actually getting one of these smaller sports cars and picking it up and taking it into the lobby and placing it there. So we, it was like, hey, you won, congratulations. Now try and drive home.
We're not worthy, right?
So the shenanigans that went on, I do talk quite a bit about that in the book. There's a lot of shenanigans of the things that we did and the breakthroughs that we had. It's also a memoir because, my life, both before and after Atari, had some interesting twists and turns also. So I covered a lot of that stuff. But I think for your listeners, mostly there's just so much behind the scenes stuff. I wanted to write this book. People have been asking me for years, when are you going to write, Howard? When are you going to write the Atari book? When are you going to write the book?
Right.
And I wasn't sure how I felt about it because the thing is, you have to be honest. If you're really going to write a book like this, you have to be honest. And there's a lot of stuff I don't know if I was ready to be honest about yet. But I got to a point where I figured, look, I've got to be real. And I figured it was worth it. So I sat down to really put it out there. It was a huge effort, but it was revealing a lot of things that people do. They don't necessarily think about a lot. And one thing I hear from a lot of people is that when I describe the conflicts and the acrimony between marketing and management and engineering, and people say, this is just like what's happening today. Some things, the more things change, the more they stay the same. You still see the same bullshit, the same small people, the same little lords, the same fighting, the same assholes in engineering, the same assholes in marketing. You see those people, but I painted a lot of these stories back then that were very accurate to what was going on there. It just really still lives on. And that's why part of my practice is not just working with individuals or couples. I also work with companies trying to help out their inter-employee issues to maintain productivity and be more effective. So the commentary that goes on about the industry itself, about what coworkers are like, Nerd World Country. I'm so glad you really enjoyed that too. I was pretty happy when I came up with that, I must admit.
Yeah, that was absolutely beautiful. And the quote that I loved was, to get the most out of your travel experience, it's going to be important to understand a few things about nerd world culture and issues. That was just
it's
beautiful.
true. I mean, geeks and nerds, a lot of people don't understand that this is a culture with consistent rules. And the people aren't just being dicks. Sometimes they are being dicks, but a lot of times they're not really being dicks. They're being true to a different code. And if you can really start to understand this, you will have a much easier time dealing with engineers than maybe you're having currently. And that's something I wanted to put out for the non-nerds. As you're probably aware, every once in a while in the book, I have a note to the non-nerd.
Yes,
or a note to the nerds. I'll tell you one fun moment in there is there's a thing like when it comes to humor, which is a very important part of everything as far as I'm concerned. I have a note to the nerd. I said a joke for the nerd.
Right.
And it's like, did you hear about the new Cray computer? It's so fast, it can run an infinite loop in 2 minutes. Right?
I love that. I just passed that joke.
So that's it. But then right after that, I have joke for the non-nerd. And it goes, did you hear about the nerd who thought that was funny? And so I tried to balance the book both ways so that it's stuff for people who aren't technical. They can understand what they need to understand to get the most out of the book. And for people who are technical, they have a chance to laugh at themselves a little bit and understand, their coworkers a little more. That's what I was going for. Whether I achieved it is up to the readers.
Now, I had that made me think of a question, going back a little bit, if you don't mind me asking. It's a question and a follow-up question. So it sounds
Absolutely.
Like you really enjoyed your time working for Atari. Is that correct?
I loved it. Loved it.
And being also like doing therapists now and stuff, what would you say to the people out there that are in a job that aren't in love with it?
Well, I can tell you because I had many, many years between Atari and becoming a therapist, which was about 25 years. I had many jobs that I did not love, that I was not crazy about. I had to work 2 jobs all the time, right? I'd work my day job so I could eat, and I would do some sort of creative product at night just to keep myself going because I need both. When you're working a job that's really eating you up, that is draining you, that's not bringing anything to you, you've got to ask yourself some serious questions, and the first one is, what the hell am I doing? Right? Because the answer can be one of 2 things. One answer could be, I'm kind of wasting my time and potential, and I value my time more than that, and I'd like to get more out of it, in which case you need to start creating a plan to move on and do something different. It needs to be a plan, though. You don't just jump.
Right.
But for some people, the answer to that question is, who cares? For those people, they don't need to go anywhere. Just realize you're going to have a relatively unsatisfying life. But, hey, it's your choice.
This tastes mediocre.
Right.
Yeah, it's the big meh.
Nah.
It irked my father from the time I was 16 until he passed away that if I wasn't happy at a job, I would quit. And my whole reasoning is because I saw him being miserable at his job and coming home and hating it and taking it out on the family. And I swore I would never do that. And if I ever woke up and was like, damn it, I do not want to go to work, I hate my job, I would just quit. No notice, no nothing. I was looking for a job. When I found this one, I will find another one. And
I did the same thing. But I mean, I sort of do career counseling with people sometimes, and I help them because I've had like 5 different careers, right? I mean, I did, the game programming. I did all over technology. I've done industrial robotics. I've done teaching. I've made video documentaries and video promotional videos. I've written, this is my 4th book. I mean, I've done many different things. Because I need new challenges. I need fresh things. And every one of those was fun initially because I love the steep part of the learning curve. I like the beginning and the learning. But I'll tell you, after Atari, my life was very dry for many years. I mean, as dry as I can get. But until I became a therapist again. And the thing that really made it work, with the thing that's so great about it, is both Atari and being a therapist. They're both amazing mixtures of both art and science. It's technology and creativity. You have to do both, right and left brain. I always need to be in the center of my head, right? I need to have both sides at play. And being a therapist is really the first thing that's activated that. And I'll tell you one way that I frame it for myself. The way I look at it is, in video games were fabulous because I was entertaining nerds. I was entertaining nerds and loving that. And what happened is now, all these years later, I've come full circle. I used to entertain nerds. Now I literally make their lives better. And that's very meaningful to me. And that means a lot to me. So, David, like what you're saying, if you're really unhappy, you really can't stand what you're doing, and if you care about wanting to enjoy what you're doing, you need to start looking more seriously about what's next. And the first place to look is, what do I like? What do I love to do? And see if you can do something to start turning that from a hobby into a job.
And some really good backstory. I had a job that one day, like Matthew said, I woke up and I hated. And I started looking. I wish I had the balls to quit. I really do. But I started looking and I got this job. But then I realized, as much as there is some appeasing aspects to it, like you said, meh, it just was not fulfilling. And I hung out with Matthew so often. And one time it felt, dude, sometimes we would talk for 7 hours straight about this kind of stuff. And then we said we should do a YouTube channel and a podcast.
Yep.
And so this is like my second job, and it balances out, and it's so much great. And if it ever kickstart, I just really like that. And I think that a lot of our viewers and listeners would really hopefully learn something from hearing that. There's different forms, but I hope nobody feels like they have to be in a job they hate.
I hope not too. And, my whole thing, and I talk about this in the book quite a bit, is I kept looking. I would go, because sometimes you go and you got, like you say, you get the dream job and then you show up and you get there and it's like, not quite the dream I was hoping for. But you got to keep going. And it's the one thing I've had is perseverance and resiliency, and just an irritating desire to always do better if I'm not happy where I am, and just push and push, even if it takes decades. It's like, because I'll tell you one story that from the book that's really interesting is there was a woman who I dated for a while, very interesting woman. And she told me this story because I was thinking, when it came time to become a therapist, and I didn't start that till I was about 50. Okay. So it's never too late. But I mean, when I was 50, but I was concerned, I was thinking, geez, is it really? And so she told me this story about her father. And her father, when he was like 25 and he had a rough time and he was working hard, but he decided he wanted to go to college. He wanted to go to college and get a degree, but he realized, he thought the way this guy got to go at night and do all this, I'm going to be like 29 before I graduate, so maybe it's not worth it. And so he told that to his wife. You know what his wife said? His wife says, well, how old will you be if you don't go to college? And so the truth is you're going to get older either way. The question is, where are you going to be a few years from now? And do you want to do something now to change what that looks like? If you have the motivation, there's always a way to get there.
And, case in point, folks, I worked at Apple as an escalation supervisor for several years. Some things happened in my life and I needed a career change. I had to make a career change. And I'd been told my whole life, hey, you should write. And I never took that to heart. And then when I had to have a new career, I started out scraping bottom, but now I make a living at it. I make a decent living at it. And I love it. It is something that I can be passionate about, waking up every morning. And so, case in point, if you don't like what you do, you were looking for a job when you found this one. Don't quitting on the spur of the moment's not for everybody, but it can happen. Rob, Howard, my battery is dying, as everybody can see. My power is out. I have a couple more questions I have to ask. Can we get you to commit to come back in a couple of weeks? Because
absolutely.
Because I have a lot more questions about the book.
Absolutely. I'm going to do my best to not have anybody go crisis on me that time also. So
well, we'll just tell our viewers, bah humbug if y'all can't wait a few more minutes.
But I will talk with Zach. We'll get everything worked out here. But here at Geek Insider, we like to get inside the geek or the nerd, as the case may be. And usually we go a little deeper than this, and folks, if you haven't read the book, you've got to read the book to understand this. But Howard, are MRBs useful in psychotherapy?
Actually, there is a lot of research going on these days about MRB related activities and psychotherapy, microdosing, some people would call it. But currently, MRBs are not a way I practice psychotherapy. They were definitely a part of my video game programming experience, though. For those of you who don't know what an MRB is, you should probably get a copy of Once Upon Atari and pick it up. I guarantee you will not be disappointed. Another acronym that comes up in that book is BMOBS, BMOBS. Yes. And that is something that is descriptive of the world we are in today and how we got here. So there's lots of great acronyms for you if you're so inclined. There's jokes,
Matthew,
there's life lessons.
Get a link in the YouTube so anybody watching this afterwards has a link to purchase it?
Yes. Yeah. Definitely.
Oh yeah, you can go to onceuponatari.com. And at onceuponatari.com, you can get autographed copies of the book and or the DVD. That's the only way to do it, other than seeing me at a show somewhere.
And see, that's the way I would have bought mine. I love autographed copies, but I wanted it as quick as possible. I wanted to read some. I really wanted to finish the book, but you know how time is. But I did finish half of it, and I'll finish the other half before you come back.
Excellent.
But another big thing I wanted to ask you, and then I have one final question before my computer dies, and then folks, I promise we're going to get Howard back here. But
I will absolutely come back.
Bro, you had game ideas before you even freaking touched a computer. And your tank game idea was decades before its time. And then we've kind of seen games like that, or not kind of, we've seen that exact freaking game come to fruition. Do you ever just play around with coding and make games these days?
That's a really good question. I don't do a lot of that, but I'll tell you something. I'm going to bust some news out for you right here. The truth is, I have signed a deal with Atari recently, and I am going to be making an honest-to-God sequel to Yar's Revenge. You're seeing Yar's Revenge reimagined and stuff. I had nothing to do with those titles other than having made the original Yar's Revenge.
Right.
But I have signed a deal with Atari. We're looking around to get all the pieces together. I have a design that's all set, and I'm going to make the first actual HSW sequel to Yar's Revenge. And it is going to have a number of Easter eggs in it too. You can count on that stuff because that, you know, Easter eggology is something I really worked on and developed throughout all of my games.
Y'all heard it here, guys.
And
so I just wanted to bust that out for you.
What a great way to bust that out on us.
It's the least I could do for showing up late.
And going back to the first, though, Yar's Revenge was one of the first that had Easter eggs in it. And you guys really kind of started that whole thing with Atari. Again, my freaking battery's about to die. This kills me because I have a lot of questions, especially, we hadn't even touched on ET yet, but I didn't want to focus this interview on ET. So many freaking interviewers do that with you, and I get it. I totally get it. But there's so much more in this book other than ET. And so, folks, y'all have kind of a, hey, he just dropped a bomb on us that he's doing the sequel to Yar's Revenge, or the official sequel to it. And we're going to have him back. I'm going to shoot for 2 weeks, Howard, if we can work that out. But if not, we will get it when we can. And
2 weeks from today, Sunday night, is actually very workable for me.
Perfect. And I'm getting that worked out with Zach. That's an open night for us. We don't have any scheduled interviewers. That works out great with a new official sponsor of the show we have coming on. But before this battery dies, I do have to ask this one question that we ask every single guest. We used to have another show called Geek Speak. We have over 50 different great guests that we have asked this question. This one, I am very interested to hear the answer, because Howard, if you could go back in time and give young Howard one piece of advice, a single piece of advice, what would it be?
Probably, buy Apple.
We hear that one a lot, Howard.
I mean, I could change it up for you. Could say buy Microsoft. I mean, seriously, if I were going to go back and really do it, I would say, after Atari, Howard, go do the therapy thing now. Don't wait. Gotcha. It's what you love. It's really where you need to be. If I would have done that, then I would have published probably another 10 or 15 books. I'm planning on writing more now. I'm going to have some interesting, therapy and books about relationships, life, how to do better. I call it, fresh eyes for old problems. And it's, I'm excited about that. But
that's a great, that was a question I had that I never got to answer. Was any upcoming books in the works?
Yeah, the next book is likely going to be titled The Method to Cupid's Madness. How relationships really work.
Well, you know, we
Nice.
could have a whole nother conversation with your psychotherapy analysis. I am probably a case study in myself. You could write a whole book. But Howard, man, I have really enjoyed this. I knew going in that I could go a 2-hour show with you, and so having you come back is great. I knew just from the tone of your book and your sense of humor that you and I were going to get along, and then plus, you know, but
He may have cut out there.
Oh no, it's battery time.
But I can definitely tell you, we were really excited to have you on. We've loved your sense of humor. We can't wait to have you back. With that being said, was there anything else that you wanted to share with our audience? And then we'd like for you to stay in here as we do our outro. We'll finish up that live show, say our goodbyes. But before I do the outro, was there anything else that you wanted to share?
I just want to say thank you so much for having me. You know, next time we do a 2-hour show, I'd like to be there for the whole thing. And I really appreciate the shout. And, you know, I would ask people to definitely check out this book, Once Upon Atari, How I Made History by Killing an Industry by Howard Scott Warshaw. If you go to onceuponatari.com, there's autographed copies available and, you know, scheduled stuff. Also, I'm going to be in Portland at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo on, I think, the 14th and 15th and 16th of October. And I'll also be in Orlando, I think, in November on the 18th, 19th, and 20th at Free Play, Florida. So I will be around. Get your books, come to the show. I will autograph it for you.
What we'll do is we're going to try to get some of that information from Zach. We'll go ahead and we'll plug that down below at this show so everybody can be preemptively checking that out, making plans to fly out there for you.
Fantastic. Well, David, thank you so much. I didn't get a chance to thank Matthew, but I will. You know, drop me an email, and I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm looking forward to talking with you again. 2 weeks would work for me.
Absolutely. Now, please stay tuned. Once I do the outro, I'd like to talk to you for another second once we get off the air.
I am going nowhere.
Oh, that does it for this episode of Into the Geekverse. If you enjoy our content, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. And if you want to join us live, hit that bell so you never miss a show. Want to catch us on the go? Listen to our podcast on every major platform, but you can catch the real fun on YouTube. Be sure to visit geekinsider.com for tons of great geek content and advertising opportunities. And if you want to stay up to date on all things geeky, sign up for our newsletter. We'll see you next Sunday at 9 p.m. Central. And if you're not here, we might have to revoke your geek card. Have a great week, everyone.